Welcome to Can Angels Fly? I'm Nancy, and today I'm here to talk about something that's really complicated. It's really complicated. I don't know what the title of this video will be because the subject matter is so complicated. I have been mulling over the subject matter for weeks. I have tried to write out a layout, a script. None of it really worked. So this video, like many of my videos, is going to be rough, really rough. But I'm going to attempt to present this subject to you and to tackle this subject. I am exposing something that we are conscious of, but yet are unconscious of. Throughout this video, I'm sure there will be long moments of silence as I try to structure the information. I'm sure that I may use poor examples. Why? Because the subject is just that complicated. I don't know when I will actually introduce the subject matter, but somewhere along the way, I will. How do I begin? I guess I'll begin by asking a question. When is the last time you choked on something? Water, food, peppermint, something. What was the first thing you wanted to do? Breathe. Please let me breathe. If you were unable to clear your airway, if you couldn't catch your breath, the ultimate result could be death. Let's see. When you drink the suggested amount of water per day, which I believe is about 8-ounce glasses of water per day, you are confronted with an issue. What is that issue? I gotta go. You gotta go. You can't help it. You gotta go release all that water. You have the urge. Introduction. Today, we're here to discuss urge. Before I move forward, I like to highlight what my channel is really about, what it's grown into. My channel has grown into, or I'm attempting to grow it into, a place where we can come and reveal just how the physical and the spiritual experience is taking place simultaneously. I'm here to point out that which we voluntarily overlook, and that is the spiritual realm. We pay attention to the physical. It's quite easy. And why is it so easy to pay the physical realm attention and not the spiritual realm? Now, let this be said. The spiritual realm is what or where your motivation comes from, your animation comes from. However, we don't pay the spiritual realm any attention. We give all our acknowledgement to the physical world. Why? Well, the physical world has a way of making sure you acknowledge it. It has a way of making sure you appreciate it. An example of how this physical realm makes sure that you appreciate it goes back into the example I gave. You're choking. The first thing you have is the urge to breathe. The discomfort brought on by such an experience makes you aware of life. As a human being, a spirit in a physical body, we have access to tools that assist us in acknowledging the presence of life. And what are these tools? These tools are our eyes, our noses, our mouths, our ears, and our hands or skin, the nerves. And each one of these tools has a function. The function of the eyes is to permit a person to see. As we all know, the nose permits us to smell, the mouth permits us, and the tongue permits us to taste. The ears permit us to hear. The skin and the hands and the nerves permit us to feel. The five senses. Through these five senses, we interact and interface with this world. That is why we pay attention to physicality and not to spirit. So in this video, as I have attempted to do in other videos, is to draw a line between the physical and the spiritual. As mentioned, this video is about the urge. Once your mom and pops came together and performed their sexual ritual, you were created. It took 10 months for a specialized suit, your body, to be fashioned for you. Your spirit was interjected into that body. And then, on the first day of the 10th month, you were born. Or something similar. One of the first practices a doctor performs when a baby is born is to slap it on its butt, causing the baby to have a state of like shock, to take his first breath of life. Now let's talk about, now that you're in the body, you've taken your first breath. See, the first breath was mandatory for you to be alive. There are other mandatory functions. Other than to breathe, inhale, exhale, as a mandatory function to live. There is also the need for your heart to continue to beat, for your brain to be active with thought. It is important and necessary, not important, necessary, for you to have a, I can't think of the one term that talks about the bowel and bladder function required. It is also required that you have time for sleep and to awake. These are necessities to be alive, to stay alive. So hang with me. You also have hunger and thirst requirements, necessities. There are emotions, necessity. There is also the ego, necessity. I want to focus on the bladder as well as hunger. Remember, this video is about the urge. Your physical body is going to demand through hunger that you feed it. Therefore, you have an urge to eat. Your physical body is going to demand that you give it some fluid through thirst. It is, you will have the urge of thirst. When it comes to the bladder, once the bladder is full, you're going to have an urge to urinate. Now, these are the two functions that I'm using as an example. But keep in mind all that I've mentioned. If you deny the urge to urinate, there will be a result. And that result is pressure. If you deny to satisfy the urge to eat or to drink, there will be pressure. Let me add some more of those previously mentioned functions from the list. If you refuse to breathe, there's going to be pressure. If you refuse or try to stop your heart from beating, there's going to be pressure. And that pressure is brought on by what we'll term at this point in time in the video the grand urge. Each one of these functions that I've mentioned are a requirement for life. Therefore, they are life. As I mentioned, this subject is complicated. How can I do it? The urge has made sure that you will acknowledge it, that you will interact with it, or there will be repercussions, torture, and torment. What do I mean by that? The urge has forced you, no, the urge or something directly related to the urge has made sure that you incarnated with those 5 tools and those 5 senses for the most part. Those 5 tools and 5 senses make sure that you acknowledge and interact with the urge by, first off, activating in you some necessities or requirements. And those requirements, as mentioned, are hunger and thirst, your heartbeat, breathing, inhaling, exhaling, bladder and bowel functions, requirement to sleep and then to awake, requirement of thought, requirement of emotion, and the requirement of an ego. You must possess these. If you refuse to use any of these functions, you die. The urge demands and requires that these core functions are always active. Either you do them or you die. Now, with that being said, if you are required to do these things, or you die, then that means that the urge is the life giver. I'm going to repeat that. That means then that the grand urge is the life giver. It is life. With that being said, what are you going to do between the time you exit the womb, take your first breath, until you die and leave out of here in a tomb? What are you going to do? Remember, the grand urge demands you, requires that you do as it has said, or you die. It says, do as I say. So now you're here. Now your heart is beating, your brain is active, you are hungry, and you feed yourself because of the hunger. You drink the fluid because of your thirst. You breathe because you must. Try to hold your breath. How long can you hold your breath? Some people, 4, I think up to 7 minutes. But that second after that 7 minutes or whatever it is, they're going to be forced through pressure to take another breath. But if a person, back to our first example, is choking, and after that second, after the 7th minute, they can't catch their breath, what happens? That person begins to die. The brain slowly begins to shut down, and it can throw a person's heart into arrhythmia, leading to a heart attack. You die. Either do as I say or die. So we work feverishly to make sure that we can continue to breathe. We obey the urge. The urge demands that you eat through hunger. Feed this vessel. Keep it going. Put fuel into this vessel I have given you. If you refuse to eat or drink, what happens? You begin to grow weak. Some people confused. And if you continue and refuse to eat or drink, you, with fluids, you become dehydrated. Your teeth can fall out. Your hair begins to fall out. Refusing to eat food. Your body starts to eat upon itself. And it eats and destroys the muscle. In short, you begin to die. So we satisfy the requirement set forth by the urge, which is life. We eat and drink. Excuse me, in order to stay alive. Ooh. Because we eat and drink, eventually, after processing, we have to go. Let's talk about bladder and bowel functions. The urge requires that you have a bowel movement and a bladder movement. If you refuse to go, the urge will put the pressure on you. And how does the urge put the pressure on you in relationship to your bladder and your bowel? Well, we know that, don't we? But for this video, I'm going to talk about it. Oh, excuse me. What has got me? If you have to do, number one, you instantly feel an urge to go. Your bladder starts putting the pressure on you, the urge. We usually move as quickly as we can to satisfy the demand of the urge. And why is that? Well, number one, we don't want to have any mistakes or accidents out in the world amongst the public view. So we go ahead and we go as soon as we can. However, we do have been granted a little leeway there where we can kind of hold it, because we might be out and about. But eventually, we're going to be moved. Once that urge announces itself in that arena, We're going to start setting our plans or rearranging our plans so that we can go empty our bladder, fulfill the obligation or the requirement of the grand urge. If we refuse to, for any reason, example, men with prostate issues, that have a problem urinating, if you can't, you want to satisfy the urge because you realize, hey, if I don't satisfy the grand urge, I die. So you want to go. But you got this prostate issue that blocks your ability to urinate, to empty your bladder out. And you can't go. You can't go. Eventually, you will die. So, from not urinating. It is the same with a bowel. Before we move on to the remainder of the physical experience in relationship to the spiritual world, I want to highlight one other required natural function required by the grand urge life. It is the ego. Each individual in the physical body is given an ego. Now, we each use or access our ego on different levels. We can say not zero, 1 to 100. 100 being a person totally ego-driven, narcissistic. 1 is a person that we will look at as more humble. But yet, the ego exists. The ego demands certain things. One in particular is your survival. So not only do we have the grand urge that has impelled us who, me, you, and each individual in humanity to do as it desires, it has also interjected in us, excuse me, a fail-safe response to this challenging world. And that is the ego, and the ego demands you to defend the body that you are in. Now that we have covered all the natural functions that are required by the urge in order to live, we're going to move forward and talk about what we partake in the course of our lifetime, the experiences that we have in the course of our lifetime. You come to me either through free tarot readings or contacting me to read you personally. And it's about what's going on with my life, my love life, my money, or whatever the case may be. What's to come? Why is somebody doing what they do? Why do I, the inquirer, do what I do? Well, let's try to address that, to come to an understanding. Oh my goodness. Sniffing and snotting. Okay. Once you enter into this realm you immediately began to engage the world. As a baby, your world is considerably small in comparison to an adult. You depend on your life experiences from your mom, your dad, your grandparents, your siblings. As you grow up, you expand outside of the house to your neighbors, your community, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, people from your neighborhood, all that kind of stuff I'll be talking about. As you progress through life, that small social network expands to a larger social network. This is your outreach into the world beyond your comfort zone. So you interacting with all of these beings. And all of these beings have come from different places and or had different life experiences. But because this video is so complicated to create, let's just focus on you. You. Since you've come out of the womb, what have been your life experiences? Why do you do what you do? Well, we already have established that a grand urge sets you in motion. The grand urge permits you to stay alive, to live. You move forward. You will continue to acknowledge it. You will give it what it wants. You will give it what it demands. So now, as you move through the world, you may choose to at some point in time, maybe partaking sex. Popular subject. You may pick up the habit of smoking cigarettes. You may develop a substance addiction. Alcohol, dope. Oh, how about gambling? You may choose to do a whole collection of things. For this video, I will deal with just a few of the options you are presented in your life. You are presented these options through others and through that which creates this matrix, this world. What I failed to do is to give you the official definition of urge. So at this point in time, I'm going to read you a list of definitions, official definitions of the term urge. And it reads, urge, to push or force along, to impel with force or vigor, to drive with incitement to speed or effort, to press, push, or hasten the course, activities, etc., to impel, constrain, or move to some action, to endeavor, to induce, to persuade, to press something upon the attention, to insist, allege, or assert with earnestness, to be impaled, to be forced along. Now that's the official definition of the urge. But as I mentioned, this video is talking about when physicality, or how physicality is interacting with the spiritual world. We pay the physical world attention, but we do not pay the spiritual realm attention. I want to focus the light on the spiritual realm. So when we talk about urge as a being, a spiritual being, unseen being that holds your life in its hands, in its existence, The urge then takes on a new definition. The definition I created reads as follows. Urge, the igniter, fuel, driver, interjected into an individual, igniting the individual, their fire, their passion, their aims, their lust, their desires. Your aims, your passions, your desires, your natural functions are not yours. They are imposed upon you with vigor. If you do not oblige the urge, the grand urge, you will surely die. Let me try to get back on track. The things that you do in the course of your life. We are forced by the grand urge to be hungry and to be thirsty. You must fulfill that term. It is an obligation to stay alive. So we who, you, me, and every individual in humanity move to satisfy the demand of the urge. We eat, we drink. Some of us along the way become consumed with food and drink. For this part, I'm gonna just focus on drink. And I'm not just talking about, natural water, still can be an issue. Let's talk about alcoholic beverages. We start off college years, socializing, first little sip of liquor, alcohol. And the taste taps us into, some of us, into what is called the demi-urge. The demi-urge is the soldier of the grand urge. And the demi-urge's job is to put the pressure on you to make sure that you satisfy the grand urge. For some, that drink becomes an issue. It becomes an addiction. And why is that? It is because, number one, natural function. You must satisfy thirst. And once you partake in an alcoholic beverage, you are satisfying the thirst. But if you say, okay, let me stop consuming this particular product or item because it's not good for me, I want to prolong my life. The grand urge says, oh, I like when you drink that particular product, that particular item. Satisfy your thirst. You as an individual say, it ain't good for me. Let me stop this. But you find that you are having difficulty stopping the consumption of alcohol. For that matter, any other substance abuse, gambling, overeating. Why? Because the demiurge is there. Remember, the demiurge is the soldier. And it comes in and it puts the strong arm on you, pressure. When it comes to drinking alcoholic beverages, through your tool of the mouth, through your sense of taste, you crave it. You say, I gotta stop. Gotta stop. So you try to stop. You go to AA. And even though you go to AA, you know you need to stop. You can't stop. Why? Because the demiurge keeps putting the pressure on you. And how does the demiurge put the pressure on you? It is by causing or leading you to have DTs, withdrawals. You say, if I don't stop, I'm shortening my life. I'm going to die. I'm going to have health issues. I'm going to die. Let me stop. But you can't, because the demiurge again putting the pressure on you. So you get cranky. Demiurge putting the pressure on you. It's saying, satisfy me. Satisfy my master, the grand urge, life. Many of us fall immediately because of the pressure. Because of the pressure. The pressure is put on in two ways. Two ways. The demiurge puts the pressure on you, torments you through either your mind or your physical body. And we fall then. We can't handle it. We can't handle the repetitive thought and reminder of the satisfaction we received in our body for obeying the urge. We can't stop it. We be like, okay, I'm going to just do it. Alcoholic going through DTs. Let me take this drink to calm my nerves. A dope fiend that's going through vomiting and shit. Let me take this dope so I can get control of my physical body. A person that, another example, emotions. You ever been in a situation, maybe a love triangulation, where you were betrayed, your heart was broken? When you realized it, that you were being betrayed, that person didn't love you anymore, your emotions went rapid. Rage, anger, depression. You get to a place where you say, now I know that person ain't no more important than myself. Get myself together. Get yourself together. Stop all this crying. Go back to work. Show your fabulous self, but you just can't. Why? Why? Because the urge has demanded that you feel a certain way. Feel lost. Feel sad. Feel depressed. And if you do not satisfy the urge, In this case, you usually don't die. Some do end up committing suicide due to the pressure of such experiences. But if you don't die, sometimes you wish you were dead. You feel like you're gonna die. Why? Because the demiurge is putting pressure on you. Example, a person who smokes cigarettes. I smoke cigarettes. I know this experience personally. Through my life experiences, I was introduced to cigarettes. I didn't really know what they were about, the long-term effects. Took that first hit, basically addicted. Eventually, I found myself short of breath. Then I found a label on the side and say it leads to cancer. It'll kill you. So I come to this understanding. I got to stop smoking cigarettes. I want to extend my life. I want to be healthy while I'm here. But when I go to stop, the demiurge begins to put the pressure on me. Any smoker, I'm sure, can testify to this. And so the first thing the demiurge does is attack my mind. I say I ain't gonna smoke a cigarette. I don't buy no cigarettes. Next thing I know, I'm looking for one. God dang, I said I'm gonna stop smoking. 30 minutes later, I picked up a lighter, everything. God dang, I say I'm quitting smoking. I'm not gonna smoke no more cigarettes. And then after the nicotine and other chemicals in the cigarettes begin to dissipate from my body, because I refuse to get on up and go buy a pack of cigarettes, I'm reminding myself that I'm stopping. Demiurge said, oh, you done got past the middle part of it. You won't get up. You won't go get it. Or you won't reach out and take it. Okay, I'm going to put the pressure on you. Next thing you know, I might really forget about the cigarettes. Demiurge intensifies the pressure. As the nicotine and other chemicals from the cigarettes within my body begin to dissipate, then it becomes this cramping in my stomach, tension in my chest. Demiurge put the pressure on. And if I can fight that off, if I can fight through it, oh my, if I can fight through it, then the next issue becomes I get real grumpy. Because the demiurge is putting the pressure on me. It keeps reminding me of it. It keeps reminding me of the satisfaction. It keeps squeezing my chest and squeezing the top of my abdomen. And then I can feel the nicotine, escaping my body. And it's saying, satisfy me or you die. Like, what? After that, I moved to a place where I began to compensate with food. So every time I turn around, I put something in my mouth to try to stop the urge, the craving, to suppress the demiurge that's putting the pressure on. It takes some time to battle. You have to literally stay strong. If I don't stop, I'm inviting illness and death into my life. Yes. Death is inevitable. But I can prolong this experience, maybe. But if I keep on keeping on partaking in an activity. Example, smoking cigarettes. Example, misusing or using drugs, alcohol. Guess what? I shorten my life. I summons illness into my life and then death. I know now, death is inevitable. So, what do you do? I think that's where the term "I damned if I do" and "a damned if I don't" emerged from. Death is inevitable. The final category I like to talk about goes back into the grand urge and the natural functions it has imposed upon us and demanded or requires that we satisfy. And it is the ego. The ego being that function that demands us to persevere. Survive. The ego demands that we survive. So how do we survive in this physical world, this material world? Well, first of all, we need some money. Once we get the money, then we get the control or the power. Then what else is it that the grand urge desires? We're going to visit that at the closing of this video. But at this point in time, I'm going to cut the video off and come up with a part 2 because it's almost an hour long and I don't think I can upload a video over an hour. So I do ask you to come back, finish riding the wave with me, and really come to understand what we're dealing with. This life, you, the urge.